support. Hello, welcome back to our series of conversations with members of Feminist Podcasters Collective. Today, I'm joined by Nadine Stille. Did I get it right?
Yeah.
We are going to talk about Nadine's podcasting journey. Your podcast is called Fangirl Your Life. But before we get into how that got started and your goals with that, I want you to complete the sentence for me. The reason I podcast is.
I want to say three parts to that answer. The first part is deep curiosity. I've always been the one with the questions, even in school. It's like, of course, Nadine has a question. I'm deeply curious. Learning is one of my values. Can you tell us? Like, I just have a couple of books there in the background. And so asking questions is something that's me, basically. And so even growing up, I was like, I want to become parts of that were either I was going to become a journalist or a teacher. And then I was like, then I have to hang around with kids all the time and their parents. So I was like, no, maybe not. But hey, now I'm a coach and a podcaster. So I believe I'm doing my ideal job, my dream job. So the curiosity is part of why I'm podcasting. The other one, particularly for this topic, is I've come to realize that I would consider myself a natural cheerleader or advocate and ally. I love highlighting other people's journeys and how amazing they are. I'd like to cheer them on and just really kind of be like, I'm in your corner. You go, woo, woo, woo. That's kind of me. So when I get to do this with the guests that I have on my pods, which is really, really great. And obviously with the people I'm coaching too. And then the other part to that is connection. I've always been the one that is connecting people with other people with resources, but also helping them connect with themselves. It's like what's important to them. And I believe podcasting is what I was meant to do. That's probably the short answer. To put this all in the filter on top is like the reason I'm podcasting is I was meant to do this. It's deeply connecting and fulfilling for me.
That's fantastic. I love that. We share some similar backgrounds in that I have also been a journalist and also considered being a teacher. So similar skill sets, similar reasons. I wonder if that's just a common thread for people who are coaches and podcasters, either or maybe both, because it brings together the best of both of those things, right? So tell us about Fangirl Your Life. Where did that start? When did that start? And why did that start?
Gosh, what was the first one? Why?
Just really when and why.
When, yeah. So I'm going to go a tiny bit further back. I used to have a very different podcast years and years ago where I was highlighting other coaches, and that kind of wrapped up. But the idea of having a podcast always stuck with me. And it's like I want to get back into it. But as you know, it can take quite a bit of work and dedication to get this on the way. And around, I want to say, December 2025, I was like, no, this is it. Like, I can't hold off anymore. It's like, I need to get out and talk with people and share my side of the story too, and things that I'm passionate about. And it's been basically a build up over the last year, and where my previous business focus area wasn't really connecting with me anymore. And I realized with the world being a dumpster fire, right now, we just need to focus a lot more on intentional joy. We need to focus on community, on everyday activism. We need to address the tough things as well, but to help create the world that we all want to live in. And at the same time, we cannot dismiss that joy is vital to our well-being, because otherwise what are we going to do it for, right? We need to fill our own cups. We need to be mindful with how we're filling our cups, how we're nurturing ourselves. And I want people to apply the same type of fangirling energy that they have for books and artists and maybe sports teams or whatever it is that they get really, really passionate about. I want that type of energy to be focused on themselves as well. What if you start loving your everyday life again? What if you have a bit more energy for what it is that you do and celebrate yourself and put that joy towards yourself as well? And essentially, everyone deserves a happily ever after. And that's my path in the activism journey, I think.
I love that.
How Go for it.
I would say, I love that. And Fangirl Your Life, like it communicates that, I think, that idea of being a fangirl for yourself. And you've kicked it off a while ago. What was the goal for the show? I mean, obviously we talked about why you like to podcast, but what did you specifically with your show? What were you hoping that it would do or how it would serve you, your business?
The first, well, there's a couple of goals, but the main goal is to highlight inspiring people, to share inspiration for people who are going through a tough time and say, hey, this person is going through something similar and this is how they made it work for them. Or, hey, there is, this is happening. There is a path forward. The thing that I keep hearing, or since I started on this particular journey, I've just see things through a lens where people are very much in the everyday grind, just making it through. Things have not necessarily gotten any easier in the last couple of months. And whenever I say, what would it take for you to start dreaming again? People are like, they're tearing up. They're like, well, what do you mean dream again? Right. But it's like, well, how do you fill your cup? What do you do that kind of brings you back to joy when things are tough? And a lot of times people don't have like anything, like nothing. Well, I just open my laptop again. I start working, or I don't know, I'll put on a show or whatever. But there's nothing profound that is just that they do for the sake of having a bit of joy in their lives, right? And so that was part of it. It's like, this is for the podcast to be inspiring and saying, I want that. I want what they're having, whatever that means to them, right? So the inspiring part. And then obviously it's leading into my coaching business as well. And for people to reach out and say, well, I've got a couple of things that are actually holding me back from fully leaning into this, but I do want that. I want a bit more light and love and laughter in my life. And what would that actually look like? And for some people, that can be a bit scary, because wherever they are in their life, it's been a lead up. It's not something where they suddenly find themselves in. So it takes a bit of dismantling of mindsets or reframing of mindsets, and maybe boundary setting or exploring, hey, what would actually fill your cup? What would bring a bit more lightness into your life and connect you maybe to a bit of more purpose as well? How can you show up more meaningfully in your life so you feel a bit more, I don't know, the word nourished just comes to mind right now, but yeah.
So you feel nourished.
Inspiration and filling, and like for opening up a path for people to say, hey, I want that. Can you help me?
And I think coaches or just business owners in general, especially service providers, we have lots of options for us. We can blog. We can, do a newsletter on Substack. We can be on all the different social media platforms. We can do video. There's so many different ways that you can get out your message. What is it about podcasting that feels right for that message of trying to inspire people, help them think differently, get excited about their lives, that kind of thing?
Well, there's just something about having that inspirational voice right there getting into your head when you're having your headset on and listening to a podcast. So I think it's a more direct way to communicate and get that connection going that I was talking about earlier as well. When you have a blog or you're reading a blog, there's so much that you can put into a voice or a tone, like you read into it, whatever you want. But with podcasting, you'll just get that much more personal. And yes, I'm going to, similar to your previous podcast guest here, Lindsay Johnson, where I'm going to be leaning in a bit more into the video side of podcasting as well, to really help with the connection side of things and the inspiration, and just, highlighting obviously my own voice, but also the guests that I'm having on in a podcast.
Yeah, I love that, because I agree. I think podcasting is such an intimate, there's something like even just now having the headphones in versus not having the headphones in, it creates more intimacy in the conversation, because you're like literally in my head as we're talking, right? And that makes a big difference, I think, in developing and nourishing a relationship with an audience that may eventually become clients. And I want to get to the business part of your podcast in a minute, but first I want to go back to something you said about at the beginning about how a podcast is a lot of work. I think anybody who's thinking about starting a podcast can get overwhelmed by that. People who have a podcast can feel that. And I hear you saying, and I'm going to add video. Go back and watch Lindsay's video, because it's great, because it's also telling you full permission slip to say video doesn't have to be more work. But as I hear you talking about that, how are you managing the workload? How does it feel now that you're in it? you're coming up on a year now that you've been doing this for a while. How are you feeling about the workload? How does that affect how you show up with the podcast, what you're doing with the show and all of that?
Thought I was going to be more on top of things, to be honest. I find your community, your podcasting community so inspiring and also just kind of keeping me sane for other people who are feeling the same as me. But also there are a lot of very experienced podcasters in there who offer an alternative and say, hey, this is what I've learned. This is what's working for me here. I've got this workflow, or this is where I decided I'm not going to put that much focus on it, but instead I'm going to focus on this and this thing, and this is the outcome. And, the podcast still thriving. So with that being said, it's still a lot more work than I had anticipated. The learning curve was super steep, especially at the beginning, learning a lot new tools. I was like, hey, I got a pop-up from my podcast recording studio the other day. It's like, hey, you've done so and so many podcasts now. You are considered proficient in editing. Do you want to add this to your LinkedIn profile? I was like, well, I don't know if I would call myself that just yet, but hey, here we are a couple of months in. And I do know that so I'm coming towards the end of my first series. As of today, there's 18 episodes out. Thank you. I have another 2 or 3, depending on how things go, planned, and then I'm going to do a big review. That's definitely needed for me to also look at all the stats, all the things that I've learned throughout, what is working, what isn't working. I do want to dramatically cut back on the production side of things, but I'm still in this area where I want to do all the things myself. So it's going to be interesting in seeing how that will play out. I think there will also potentially be some structural changes in the podcast itself. So how I'm going to lead my guests through this and just seeing, yesterday we had not a coaching session, but we had the session where we have one of your podcasters through some business questions. And I got a lot of inspiration from that as well. I was like, ooh, what would that look like from my podcast and going into the second season? So that was really, really cool. Yeah. So I have a huge document of things that I'm going to go through to make sure going forward, there is maybe, I don't know, I want to say maybe higher return on investment, which sounds really corporate-y, and I know we're not really corporate-y, but I want to be just a bit smarter and more efficient going into this, right? So I can refocus the energy on other areas that also need attention. So this was a whole kind of learning curve.
Yeah. Well, we all have a limited amount of time, or you can believe in fluid time, but even still, there are only so much most of us can do within the amounts of space we have in the day where we're awake, and we only want to use so much of that for certain activities, and we'd like to have more of it free for others. So we do have to make sure things make sense, right? And how we're judging them, and ROI isn't part of that.
Yeah. And I want to do a bit of a plug-in for something that you have shared with our community, and then I'm going to use to get more efficiently set up going forward. And that's that workbook that you're going to be doing somewhere. I don't know. Can I just mention it a tiny bit?
Of course you can, but I want to be clear. I did not ask you to do this. So this is all on your own, and I appreciate you saying it.
But I know, but it's going to be, I don't know, on sale, or it's going to be on offer.
It will be for sale, but it will also be available as part of the upgrade bundle for people who sign up for Drop the Mic, which is coming up in late September. So you can get it through that if you upgrade and come to the event, or you can buy it on its own, but go ahead.
Yeah. So I was lucky to get feel very grateful to get I don't know, would you call it your first edition or a draft or an advanced reader copy?
There you go, the ARC, yes.
I got an ARC for that book, and I could, even the first few pages that I read through, I was like, oh gosh, this is going to be so helpful. And in really setting myself up with workflows and work streams and just a lot of things to be a bit more intentional and taking that podcast up to the next level. So that workbook, I know, is usually intended for people to before they start a podcast? Do I see this right?
Yes or no. It can be both. I think at any point in our podcasting journey, and honestly, I think it's a good workbook to maybe even use once a year, but the kind of thing where it's checking back in, and am I still on track? If I've already started, are there places where I've started to lose sight of certain things? Or if it's new, I think if you're new or newer, it's a really great place to start and just making sure that you're getting, it's called podcasting while the world's on fire or something like that. Keep going. Podcasting while the world's on fire.
Exactly. So this comes at a really good time for my podcasting journey. And I'm going to make sure I'll work through this because it's not just a book to read through. There's really cool exercises and reflections in it as well. So I'll block out some time to work through that totally and help me set up just a bit more efficiently.
Well, that's wonderful. And again, I didn't ask you to do that, but I love that I love that you're using the things inside the community. That's a valuable reason for joining the podcast collective, and that you are thinking strategically because, like you said, I mean, whether ROI feels corporate or whatever, but we do have to make sure that the podcast is serving us the way we want it to, right? And can I get it to better serve me? And for some people, the podcast serving us looks like I'm meeting amazing people. That might be enough. For some people, it looks like it's bringing in clients. For some people, it looks like it's getting people onto my email list. For some people, it's I'm being invited into rooms I wasn't before because people know my name, right? But whatever the reason is, we want to make sure the podcast is actually delivering on that goal. And then we can continue to massage so it gets that, which brings us to what I want to talk about next, which is the business goal. How are you looking at your podcast as a piece of your business? How are you wanting it to serve your business? And what are you, because you mentioned some tweaks you might be making. What are you sort of at least beginning to think about on how you might better make it serve your business the way you want?
Yeah. So right now with the first season, my intention was more around the content creation, establishing myself as the connector, the thought leader around it, bringing the whole messaging out. Because, I mean, fangirling your life is not something that has, at least to my experience, has existed beforehand. So there's a whole bit of like informing my immediate already existing communities, like, what's this about? So there's there's all that going on like learning, establishing maybe the phrase a bit more, and also leaning into like what resonates with people when I bring certain topics into the world. What are they, responding to, etc. And then use all this going forward for my business as well. And yes, it's essentially actually everything that you said is like, yes, I prompt people to subscribe to the podcasts on, their preferred platform. I do prompt people to come on to join my newsletter list, and invite them to come and book a call with me so we can establish how I can exactly help them live their fangirl life. And going forward, I think some of the ideas that came up yesterday in that session are around, I don't know if I want to use the word plug, but it's like just be a bit more intentional about how I can serve people a lot earlier in the podcast as well. And it's like, hey, by the way, I help people like you who's currently listening in. And this is how we can connect and collaborate together. So that's one of those things. Other areas are a lot more like podcast guesting, using this as a platform, or maybe exchanging guest interviews. So I would appear on someone else's podcast, they would appear on my podcast, etc., which is also wonderful to be part of your community because that makes it a lot easier.
When we're new to podcasting or newer to podcasting, I think it's so valid and sometimes really important to lower the expectations or the goals around it being like the thing that's going to make my business take off. And instead saying, first, I love that you're just like, I just want to start to use it as a tool to establish this framework, this concept, help it get some recognition and understanding, help people understand what I mean by this, put shared language around something that feels a little newer. That's so valuable and important. And that can be the goal. And then I like that you're starting to think like, how do I build on that? Maybe each season it starts to build on it. Now, maybe there's a bit of the shared language. Now maybe it becomes about how do I want people to implement that in their lives? Or how do I want them to begin to think about me as the person that teaches on this? So then it's more guest speaking. It's getting to other communities. Whatever, and thinking about these things sort of as a building on each other instead of I think one of the reasons that people burn out on podcasting and kind of come and go quickly is they go into it thinking it has to be the solution to their business right away. And it isn't. It takes time, like any marketing effort. It takes a lot of time and it builds on itself. And if you're willing to put in that time and the energy, as you've mentioned, then it can really start to make a difference. And you've been doing it almost a year. We're, a little shy of that. You've had your first sort of run. What are you noticing? And it does not have to be, again, in the first season, it probably isn't. Oh, my business doubled or anything like that's not realistic. But what are the payoffs for you so far in having been doing this podcasting?
Having a whole lot of joy.
And friends, that is worth it too. Please, that's a valid thing to measure and to set as a goal. And I love that that's enough.
And, the community part is so cool because I'm leading with joy, community, and everyday activism. It says right there what I value. The other tagline around is joy, community, everyday activism because everyone deserves a happily ever after. Boom. It says exactly who my people are, who I want to connect with, who I'm inviting to this space. And it makes me feel lighter and more in alignment with focusing on the things that, are within my power to change, to make this world a better place. And so I feel a lot more lighter, nourished, joyful, connected, fulfilled, all these kind of sometimes airy fairy things, but I can feel it. I'm surrounded by people who all want the same thing. And it's not necessarily there when I open up the news or when, you're scrolling social media because everything is kind of divided and contrary and all of that. So this is really filling my cup. That establishing myself in that sphere, I can see that, oh yeah, you're doing that podcast, aren't you?
So there's two big things there.
So,
It's the calling in and creating and nurturing of community, both around just podcasting. And that's lovely that you're able to do that in our space, but also around your mission and your message, right? And finding the people for whom that resonates. And then that other piece that's really important of that name recognition of being noticed for something you're doing. And those are the seeds that do eventually start to pay off, right? They start to create the plants that we're trying to get to. It takes time. So I love that. And thank you for sharing it. How important has community, specifically around creating your podcast, how important has that been to you in both just the podcasting journey and but you're sticking with it? Because again, this first year of podcasting, so many people flame out right away. They realize it's more work than they thought it was going to be. It's not delivering the results they thought it would as immediately. And it's really easy to shut down. So I just wonder how much community, whether it's the podcast collective or other community, how much that's playing into you being able to stick with it and grow.
Well, it's been essential, by the way. Because I hear from others who are going through a similar journey, but also the encouragement, hey, there's a different way forward. Here's what's working for me. So it's very, very supportive of just get going. And sometimes there are, technical challenges. There are other sorts of life challenges. And it's how do you make it through and still keep going? And also just cheering each other on. It's especially in the collectives, everyone's sharing their episodes a week, or you're highlighting us in your Slack newsletter. And it's just, I'm not going to lie. I love seeing my name out on your newsletter.
Sure.
It's oh my God, there I am. Yay.
As you should. You should be celebrating yourself and others can celebrate you too. So it's fantastic.
So this is, and we do this on the Slack channel there as well, right? So supportive, and you just keep at it, and it's filling my cup. There's a lot of food. Maybe I'll need to have my lunch right now after this. No, I'm talking about filling my cup, and
we're almost done. You can go have a snack. What's the worst advice that you've either been given or seen out there for podcasters, especially newer podcasters?
Especially what type of podcasters?
Newer, because you're newer in the podcasting.
It's probably very generic, but the advice is that you should just start a podcast and that will solve all your problems. No, a podcast is not always the right decision at any stage in your business. You need to have that capacity for it. And I think that's when people start burning out and they're like, my gosh, and this is definitely not the right path here. So basically people telling you it's podcasting is the thing for anyone's business. It's not at any stage. It needs to be right. And the intent.
Yeah, I love that. So then what is the best advice that you've received or seen out there that's helped you with podcasting?
So I'm going to do another plug for Lindsay Johnson, because they helped me through at the very beginning of this stage before I've even looked into it. And that is to plan ahead. We made a plan together because I definitely wanted to go into seasons, not perpetually, not perpetually, that's a different word. It's like just keep going one after another, like every week. That was just not my thing. But if I plan it out and have a season of, I don't know, 20 podcasts, this is my intention with the episodes in the first season, second season. This is how I'm going to, who I'm going to invite, what are some of the topics. This is the workflow around it. And that worked for the first couple of episodes, and then life happened and I got a bit behind, and now I'm kind of week to week and I can see that it's not working anymore because I'm behind. But the planning around it is just something that I know other podcasters are doing as well, for them to stay on top of things, not feel so stressed week in, week out, and to make it a bit easier on them. So this is also my best advice. Plan ahead a couple of weeks out. Put in that extra effort and have your checklists and spreadsheets, and that would just make life a lot easier. So that's what I'm going to focus on going forward as well. Just really building out my system around it to make it a bit easier.
Yeah. Systems are there's like, the thing about podcasting is there's lots of little things that you have to do, all these little admin tasks that, when you're creative and you're in it because you want to tell stories or meet people or whatever, the admin tasks can be a little overwhelming. So I love a good system.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's actually, I see it as two, could be even more jobs. There's the podcasting as the podcast host, right? You show up, you interview the person, or you're doing your solo episode. That's one thing. But then you could be the podcast producer. You could be the podcast coordinator, right? Doing all the bookings and all of these things. You could be the podcast marketing person. So
there are
currently
a lot
I'm
of
all
roles.
the same person.
Yes. And that's, with the Podcast Collective, we're there for indie podcasters who are mostly doing all the roles, or 90% of the roles. And it is something to think about because there's a lot of pieces, a lot of moving parts. And that's, I think systems are so valuable. Nadine, for people who want to learn more about Fangirl Your Life or about you, where should they go?
To fangirlyourlife.com. And from there on, please join my newsletter community. You'll get all the prompts to then figure out the podcast and my socials, etc. But I'd love to welcome you into my space. Just join my newsletter on fangirlyourlife.com. Thank you.
Are you on YouTube? I know you're talking about growing video.
Oh, I am. I actually don't know what my handle is right now, if I've already changed it or not.
It's okay. I will find it and I will tag it here and help Nadine grow the channel, because you're going to be putting more energy into YouTube moving ahead.
For sure.
And make sure you check us out at feministpods.com if you want to join our community or learn more about what we do. Thank you so much, Nadine. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.